Well, thank you for being here today. I really appreciate your attendance. And, excuse me, I think we're missing somebody. Let's see there they are, right there. That's you. We want you to come on in and join us today. Come on, it's okay. I know you might be a little shy, but we've got a seat for you. Because this is really dedicated to you, to help you to find out how you can find a job, keep it, and get promoted. And that's what our focus is today, is to try to help us in those areas. Let me ask you a question. Would you hire you? I see a couple of nodding heads, yes, for sure. Would you hire you? And if you did hire you, if you were the boss or the owner, would you promote you? Definitely. And why? And would they keep you? Now, those are some questions that I would like for us to think about and to consider. Would I hire myself if I were the owner or the boss? And would I keep me after a week or a few days or a month or 6 months? And would I also give myself a promotion? And why would I want to do that? Now, I think that I'd like for us to consider a couple of different angles here. I think that the managers, the bosses, the owners of companies should also consider, are they hiring the right kind of people? Are they drawing to them the kinds of people that they would like to see in their organization that would help their companies and help them grow their businesses? And at the same time, are they knowing how to keep those employees? Do they know how to keep them and make sure that they don't leave after a few days, a few months, or a few weeks? And then do they know how to promote people? Do they know how to reward them for the job well done? So we'll be covering several different angles here of how, one, we can, if we're either unemployed or employed, how we can keep a job or get a job, and then how we can also go ahead and have that job security, but also how we can get some promotional rewards as well. Get promoted or get rewarded for the job well done. Now, another angle that I'd like for us to consider is, have you ever thought about being self-employed? Have you ever considered starting your own business? Now, think about it for a moment. What is your self-talk? Remember that whole concept, what our product is all about, the power of self-talk, the toolkit that you've got? We've got a book for you that is very, very valuable, and the very first chapter is all about self-talk. And I'd like for you to make sure that you're very aware of what self-talk is. I'll cover it very briefly here today, but it's very important that you go back and you read all about self-talk and how important it is, because your self-talk, the little conversation that we're having with ourselves all the time, it's very important, and that's what's going to either allow you to get hired at the right place at the right time. It's also going to help you to have job security. It's also going to give you the opportunity to see where there's a place for a promotion, and it's also going to allow you to either be on the lookout for a new job, or to start a job, or to start your own business. So these things are very, very important, and it all centers around your own self-talk. Now, just in case any of you are sitting there thinking, what is he talking about, self-talk? Are you talking about talking to yourself? That's what I'm talking about. As far as we've been going so far, I've been doing all the talking, but each of you all have been talking to yourselves as I've been talking. And think about it. When you're going on a job interview, don't you talk to yourself? Just think about it. When you're going on a job interview, what is your self-talk? What are you thinking about? When you get up in the morning, you're taking a shower, you're talking to yourself, aren't you? As you're getting ready to dial the phone to make a call to the company that you're going to go on the interview, you're talking to yourself. So we're talking to ourselves at an incredible rate of speed, maybe 2, 3, 4, 5,000 words a minute. Most of us can only talk out loud maybe 200 or 300, 400 words a minute. And it's unfortunate that most of our self-talk is negative, thinking about what we don't want. And I want you to really start to think about, what are your thoughts when you're looking for a new job? What are the thoughts that you're having? Do you have some fear thoughts? Are you fearful that they may reject you? You know, what are some other thoughts that you might have that could be paralyzing you? What are the thoughts about the job interview? Are you concerned about that? Do you have some fearful thoughts there? So what you can do is start to listen to what you're saying about the job interview, about the opportunities out there, about getting a job and keeping it, and then getting promoted. What are your thoughts all the time? Now, you really don't have the control over the weather, do you? You don't have control over the economic situation, the stock market. There's a lot of things you don't have control over, but what we do have control over is our thoughts, what we are thinking about all the time. You know, it's kind of interesting. I've been working with a company for many years, and they've always asked me to help them with their employees to make sure that they keep their employees. Do you mind holding that for me? Thank you. And one time they called me up and they said that they've got a challenge with an employee and they'd like for me to help them to discover a way to go find another job. And they really care about their people, and so they want to do this as gently as possible. I went in and I visited with this lady, and I found out that when they hired her, she was a temporary. And when they first hired her, she was an outstanding employee. And when I was visiting with her, I said, you know, I noticed that they hired you from being a temporary and you were an outstanding employee. What happened to you? And she said, well, you know, I really wanted this job. I goal set to get this job. And I said, but did you goal set to keep your job? And it was like, oh my God, yeah. She said, no, I didn't goal set to keep the job. Now, you and I would think, isn't that obvious? But think about it for a moment. How many times do we goal set to get that job, but have we goal set to keep the job? Have we goal set to be of value to that employer, to that manager? So it's very important for us to not only goal set to get the job, but to keep the job. And as far as goal setting is concerned, it's very important, again, I believe it's chapter 5 in the book, about goal setting. And we're going to be goal setting all the time, whether we like it or not. You'll be goal setting as to what kind of a job you want, what kind of an employee you want to be. Perhaps as a manager, what kind of a manager you'd like to be, what kind of a boss you'd like to be if you're in the managerial position. So we're working and goal setting constantly. What is it that you want? Not what you don't want. That's a very important concept, is to keep in mind the things that you do want. And by making sure that you're aware of what it is that you want, you and I are blessed with a mechanism in the central cortex of our brain called the reticular activating system. Now, I learned this fancy word, this fancy group of words back in college and while I was taking psychology. They called it the RAS, R-A-S. And the reticular activating system, it's actually a group of cells down in the central cortex of our brain, and it acts as a radar system. And just the other night, Fran and I were at a restaurant and we had the opportunity to meet Robin Williams. And those of you that recall Robin Williams, Mork and Mindy, remember, I believe that he had the little antenna. That's kind of the way the reticular activating system works. And that's so valuable to you because if you're goal setting properly, you'll be at the right place at the right time. If you know what kind of a job you're looking for, if you know what kind of an employee you want to be, if all of a sudden you know what it is that you want, then that radar system helps you to be there. And it actually, I think it uses all 5 of our senses. It helps us to hear, it helps us to see, it helps us to be aware. Let me give you a couple of quick examples. How many Starbucks have you seen in the last 30 days? Quite a few, not very many. We could say, how many ExxonMobil stations have you seen? You don't know really, do you? But if we had put a value on those, and if we had said, for every Starbucks there is that you see in the next 30 days or in the past 30 days, we'll give you $100, then how many would you see then? You'd see them everywhere, wouldn't you? If we had given you $50 for every ExxonMobil station, then all of a sudden we'd see them all over the place. So what is of value to you? Is finding a job of value to you? If you're unemployed, then it's very important to you. If you're starting a new business, what about your customers? Where are you going to find new customers? Is that of value to you? Yes. And if we know what is of value to you, but listen, go back to your self-talk and listen to what you're saying about finding a job. It's so hard to find jobs these days. Anybody that possibly want me, I'm too old, I'm too young, I don't have any experience, I've got too much experience, all kinds of self-talk going on inside of our head. And if you've got your own business, where's the next customer that you're going to find? And if we say, well, it's hard to find any new business out there, then all of a sudden we're going to be building those scotomas that we talked about back in the first chapter of the book. We're going to be building those scotomas and we won't see opportunity that's right there next to us. So it's going to be very, very, very important that we manage and control our self-talk. Now, there's some great books out there. A good friend of mine, Barry Vanek, wrote a new book that you can find on our website, on my website, jimwillphd.com, and it's called Get a Job Now. And he goes through a lot of the mechanics that are very important in helping you to get your job. Now, I'm not going to talk about the mechanics today. I'm talking about what's going on between our ears right up here and what keeps us from attaining more of our true potential. And you think about it for a second. Is it your right hand? Is it your left arm? Is it, this leg? No, I think it's the self-talk. It's the thinking, that conversation that we're going and that's going on inside of our head all the time. So that's why I keep putting so much emphasis on that and helping us to find a job, keeping it, and getting promoted. Something that you can help yourself a great deal with, and it's in our workbook. And I want you to take the time and the effort and the energy to write down, how do you want to be seen when you go on the job interview? Do you want to be seen as lazy? Well, no, I don't want to be seen as lazy. Do I want to be seen as late? No, I don't want to be seen as late. What is it that I want to be seen? How do I want to be seen? I want to be seen as relaxed. I want to be seen as knowledgeable. I've gone to the company's website. I've gotten their brochures. I've educated myself on the company, the organization. I'm preparing myself. How do I want to be seen? Now, this is valuable. I work with a gentleman by the name of Dr. Bob Gordon. And Dr. Gordon is a pioneer in trial science. And he works with the world's greatest attorneys and the biggest cases in the world of trial science. And we work with their clients who happen to be customers of his, and they're getting ready to be deposed or go as a witness in a trial situation. Now, let me ask you, have any of you been a witness in a court of law? I see a couple. Most of us haven't, but have you ever been deposed? And that can be kind of nerve-wracking. Richard, I see that you have been. It's pretty much out of our comfort zone. And what we do with Dr. Gordon's clients is that we specifically work with them and ask them, how do they want to be seen by the jury? How do they want to be seen by the jury? Perception is reality. And the jury's perception of them becomes their reality. Now, if you're going on a job interview, who is your jury? The person sitting across from you? Yeah, that becomes the jury. When does the interview start? Okay. Do you think it's once you get accepted into the office of the interviewer? I think it starts way back. It starts perhaps when you call and try to make the appointment. The receptionist. Who is the receptionist? It may be the future boss's wife or daughter. And how do you treat that person? All of a sudden, what happens out in the parking lot? You just cut off the person to get that parking place, and who happens to be the interviewer then? So the interview starts immediately as soon as you make contact with that organization. And this is what we try to teach the people that we're working with in trial science, is to help them to understand that they're on the witness stand as soon as they hit the parking lot. And that's what happens, is that when you're going out for a job interview, you're on the witness stand, and it's going to be very important that the perception of that person interviewing you becomes their reality. Let's talk about your resume for a second. Not necessarily the makeup of the resume, but a Mellon Foundation study came out and they said that 85% of your success, my success, 85% of our success is based on how well we communicate. And only 15% of our success is based on our knowledge, our experience, our information, our college, education, all those things, our resume. And think about that for a second. If 85% of your success is based on how well you communicate, then how good a communicator are you? And are you aware of how well a communicator you are? Who is really being aware of your communication skills? Let's look at it for a second. What would you guess in the communication process, the words that we speak in an interview setting? Do you think that would consist of a lot of the communication process? I see some heads nodding yes. Well, it does, but let me walk you through this because I think it'll make a little bit of sense. The words are actually, in the communication process, they're actually the smallest percent of the communication process. Yeah, it's actually somewhere between 5 to 10% of the communication process is made up of the actual words. The tone of the voice sends out messages, doesn't it? It sends out honesty, truth. It sends out confidence, lack of confidence. So the tone of the voice that we emit sends out all kinds of messages. It sends out attitudes too, doesn't it? Say, we said thank you to the receptionist, but how did we say it to that person? So the tone of the voice is somewhere between 30 to 40%, and when we're on the telephone, it goes all the way up to maybe 70 or 80% of the communication process is made up of the tone of the voice. What about the body language? The body language. Now, who sees your body language last, if ever? You, right? Unless you're being on tape. How many of you ever been videotaped? And you look at yourself on tape and you go, oh my gosh, is that how I look? Okay, we're goal setting all the time, aren't we? We're goal setting as to how we want to be seen. We're goal setting as to what we want. We're goal setting as to what our body language is going to be like. You say, well, Jim, how can I goal set as to what my body language is going to be like? It's very simple. It goes back up to what I call mission control. When I worked with NASA, I said mission control, and we talked about self-talk. And we go back up to our self-talk, what we're thinking about, because whatever it is that we're thinking about is going to come out through our body language. It's going to come out through our tone of voice. It's going to come out through the words that we use. So it's very, very important. And again, the workbook that you've got, it's so very valuable. If you will please take that, and it goes through all the areas of your life, and you can start to write out what your goals are, what you want to in your career world, how you want to be seen on a job interview, what kind of an employee you want to be, what if you decide you want to start a business, what kind of a business you'd like to have. So if you'll start to understand that, hey, it's more than just a resume, it's actually understanding that you're going in and your communication skills are so very valuable. Let's go to the management for a second. I was working with a company, and this manager came up to me and he said, I don't know what's wrong with my employees. I've been here 18 years. I got 18 years of experience, and none of them listen to me. And by the way, in the communication process, what about, we talked about the words, the tone of voice, and the body language. What about, are we good listeners? Do we listen? And he said, nobody listens to me around here. And I looked at him and I said, well, Mike, could it be the way that you talk to your people? And he said, what are you talking about? And he said, I talk to them just the way I've always talked to them. And I said, but that may be the problem. So the words that he says isn't as important as how he treats his, oh, by the way, they were called subordinates. All right, so that tells you something right there. They're employees. So how do we treat people? And I think it's very important that we treat people with the respect and dignity that all of us deserve, and start to concern ourselves, if we're in management, if we're owners, start to concern ourselves about the feelings of our employees. And I know perhaps you might be sitting there thinking, hey, listen, this sounds like a touchy-feely thing. Well, it may be, but I'll tell you what, you better get in touch with your employees' feelings and find out how they feel. Because if you don't care about their feelings, do you think they're going to care about your customers' feelings? I doubt it. So it's going to be very, very important that we start to be aware of our employees' feelings. And so you get a new employee, Mr. Boss, Miss Owner, you bring in a new employee, but what happens, do we know how to keep them? And it's, I've noticed that most problems that owners or managers have is centered around just a small percentage of the employees. Most employees want to do well. They really want to serve you. They want to take care of you. They want to help you. They want to help your company grow. But what I've noticed is that there's just a small percentage of the employees that what I call are your problem children, and they're causing you a lot of problems. They keep you up at night. They wake you up in the middle of the night wondering. And I've noticed a lot of managers tend to kind of sweep them under, I'll deal with that later. I don't want to deal with them. And it's uncomfortable. You know what I mean? It's uncomfortable for them to have to deal with those kind of employees. But you better deal with them, because your good employees are going to leave if you don't. And if you allow just a handful of employees to get away with mediocrity, then guess what's going to happen? It's going to be very important that you help the good employees to develop a area of comfort that they know that you're going to protect them. And what are you protecting them with? Quality and excellence. And you're going to help them to understand that it's very important to bring to the work the qualities that you really do want. If you don't, you're going to lose that good employee. You're going to lose them to somebody else. They're going to say, this is crazy. I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to go find a place, an organization that appreciates me. And you're going to lose those type of good people. So it's very, very important that we become aware of that. Now, all right, let's look at in terms of if we're out there looking for a job. Are you an easy sell? Are you? Yeah, maybe. Richard's kind of wondering. Yeah, Marcia. Fran says, no, she's not an easy sell. I ask it's kind of an interesting situation. I've got a friend, and he also happens to be a client of mine, and I'm also a customer of his. So it's a unique situation. I told him once, I said, Jay, you're an easy sell. And he said, no, I'm not. He said, no, I'm not. He said, I'm a lot like Roland, another friend of ours. And he said, I will evaluate it, and I'm not going to spend any of my money. I'm not just a pushover. I said, no, Jay, I don't mean that. And I wanted to get his attention by, asking him, are you an easy sell? But are you an easy sell? And what do I mean by that? And I told Jay, I said, you're an easy sell because it's easy for me to sell you to other people. Okay? Now, are you an easy sell? And where are you going to find your next job? Okay? Where might that be? It could be some friend of yours. It could be somebody that you're out networking with. It could be in the oddest of places. And so are you making it easy for somebody else to help sell you? Or is it difficult to sell you? So I want us to start thinking, are we an easy sell? No, we're not talking about just a pushover to get into your pocketbooks, but are you somebody that makes it easy for somebody else to help promote you? And I think that you got to utilize all the different avenues in order to help find yourself a job. Let's think about the type of personalities that you will be interviewing with. Now, there's all kinds of folks, but I think you've got to become like our little friend in the gardens, the chameleons. And what do? They change and they adapt to their environment. And I think that's what we've got to do. Perhaps you've heard of different personality types, and let me just share with you 4 that I like to categorize, and you can kind of start to think about where do you fit in this personality stereotyping. And one thing I don't want you to say, oh yes, that's me, and say, well, I can't change. Hey, isn't that what chapter 4 is all about in our book? All about change. All right, now that you're a chameleon and we're getting ready to go in that job interview, we need to read the personality types of the person that's going to be interviewing us. Now, you can call them different names, but I've come up with the bottom liner, the person that just wants the bottom line. Hurry up, give me the facts. I don't want to know how the clock is made. Just tell me what time it is. Can you help me to solve my problems here at my company, or can't you? Are you part of the problem or part of the solution? They're very quick to criticize you. They're going to let you know what they think. You're going to be able to find out if they're a bottom liner they're usually very organized, and they delegate, and they're going to usually be a manager or an owner. Okay? Now, the networker, another personality type that I like to refer to, the person, this is usually a person that's in sales. Not necessarily. They may be an owner, they may be a manager as well, but usually they're out there networking. Now, what is networking? It's going and signing up to be a member of the Rotary Club. It's signing up to be a part of the association of their industry. It's out there shaking hands, exchanging business cards, getting to know other people, and that's very, very valuable to you, especially if you're looking for a new job. Get out there and go ahead and start networking. and meeting other people. The way you can usually tell a networker, if you go into their offices, they're going to have a lot of information on the walls about their social life, about their family life. They're going to have pictures of their children. They're going to have pictures of them winning a golf tournament. They're going to have pictures of them meeting the president of an organization. Lots of things for you to visit with them about. And a lot of times they would like to visit with you, and that's a good way to kind of break the ice. The other person, who I like to refer to as the methodical individual. These folks are a challenge for the networker who's kind of bubbly and they're happy and they're out there wanting to have people like them, and they like most of the people that they meet. But the methodical person, they're usually going to be pretty rigid. They're more than likely going to be in accounting or in engineering. They've got a lot of rules and everything is set in place, and they want to know, exactly how things are done. And they're going to want to have a plan of action from you as to how you're going to help their organization. And when you come in and you say, "Hi, I'm Jim Will," and guess what? They're going to go, there's not going to be any expression on their face. And guess what your self-talk is going to be like right then? Oh my goodness, this guy doesn't like me. This person doesn't care for me. I've already blown the interview. Not necessarily, but all of a sudden. And how can you tell if you're in a methodical person's office? More than likely, they're going to have a lot of charts and graphs and information. And again, they're going to be very well organized as well. I think one of the, I want to hesitate in saying the scariest, because whenever I do seminars on customer service, I say that the pleaser is the scariest customer that a company can have. But as a person going in for a job interview, you're going to also be dealing with a pleaser. And perhaps not as much as the bottom line person, because they're going to be the management, and they're going to be in management. They're also going to be probably an owner from time to time. You're going to run into the networkers. You're going to also run into the methodical individuals. But the pleaser is exactly what it sounds like. Somebody that likes to please people. And they're really not going to rock the boat. They're really not going to tell you anything that may hurt you or offend you. And the reason I say in customer service they're the scariest is that you ask them, if you're a restaurant owner, how was your meal today? They're going to say, "Oh, it was fine." And all of a sudden, guess what? As soon as they leave, they're going to complain to somebody else and say, "Well, I ordered chicken and they brought me fish." Well, are they going to tell the owner or the waiter what was wrong? No, they're not going to do that. So you, as the chameleon, have got to be able to figure out, am I talking to the person that's a bottom liner? They just want the facts. They just want to hurry up and give them information. How can you be of value to them? Or am I talking to the methodical person? Very analytical. They want to know how the clock is made. Or are you going to be talking to the networker and they want to socialize with you a little bit? And what kind of a job are you interviewing for? If you're an analytical person, you're going to feel right at home with that person that's analytical, and you all are going to get along great. If you're a bottom line person, you and the bottom line person are going to get along really well. But if you happen to be a networker and you're working over here trying to interview with a methodical person, that can be a little bit uncomfortable for you. Exactly. So we've got to give ourselves some sneak previews. And what we learned in the chapters on visualization and through our good friend Craig McFarland is how we can start to visualize and give ourselves some sneak previews of what's going to take place. How do you want to handle yourself when you're in front of a methodical person? One of my clients now of many years standing, and he's actually a very dear friend of mine, was doing some work with him, and at the time he was an accountant. He now owns his own company, but as an accountant, I was visiting with him. He had me working with his staff, and I went in to give him some feedback after one of our seminars, and I remember my self-talk. I was sitting across from him, and I'm sitting there telling him some things, and he's sitting there just Dead serious. And you know, again, my self-talk was, this guy doesn't like me. I think he's going to fire me. And sure enough, he liked me a lot. So much so that even to a point to where he once said, after we visited for a little bit and he kept that stone face, he said, Jim, you want to go to the ball game tonight? Guess what my self-talk was then? Oh boy, this is going to be exciting. And sure enough, as soon as we did go to the ball game, he went from being the methodical individual there on the job to being the networker. He was up hollering, having fun, yelling at the referees and giving everybody, he was a different type of person. But don't we kind of change? You know, if we're in a particular setting, we act differently. So that's fine. But what we want to do is to make sure that we start to develop an awareness of who we're interviewing with, who that person that's interviewing us is, when we're actually starting the interview. We don't start it just when we go in and sit down in front of them at the opposite side of the desk. We're starting that interview perhaps as soon as we park the car, maybe even back on the highway. So we want to be very cognizant of when and where we're starting the interview, and then how do I want to be seen? How do I want to come across? Because the person who's interviewing you is going to treat you and respond to you the way that they see you. And if they see you as nonchalant and perhaps not caring, then guess what? Their perception of you is going to become their reality. Do you think they're going to, but my resume, look at all this good stuff on my, sorry, it doesn't count, because only 15% of your success, of my success, is based on how well is based on our resume, based on our education, based on our experience. It's how we communicate those things to that person, and then what might be of interest and of value to that methodical person may not be of interest and value to that person that's a networker. So you can lay out all these beautiful things that you've done to the methodical person that may be very valuable to them. But if you say the same things over here to that networker or to the bottom liner or to the pleaser, then guess what? It may be going completely over their head and you're walking out going, what happened? You know, nobody's hired. Nope. We've got to really find out what is of value to the person that's interviewing us. Remember our reticular activating system, the RAS? We've got to find out what is of importance to them. Are Starbucks, are ExxonMobil gas stations of value? No, they're not. Then what is of value to them? And we've got to do our homework. We've got to do a little research, and we've got to find out, okay, who is the person that I'm going to go find or go interview with? Call up some friends that may work in that company, that organization. Say, do you know that person that I'm going to be? Yes. And find out, okay, is that person a pleaser? And if it is, then all of a sudden we start to think, okay, I need to kind of put on my pleaser hat and be somewhat similar to that person. Because what's of value to that person is going to get through their reticular activating, their RAS, their consciousness. So we've got to develop an awareness that our job is really learning how to be a very effective communicator. You know, by the way, I mentioned the 85% of our success is based on how well we communicate. That's a Mellon Foundation study, and they also came out that 86% of all of our problems are caused from miscommunication or a lack of communication. So in summary, job one in the job search world is communication. Yes, you've got the degrees, you've got the experience, you've got the knowledge, you've got the resume, but as important as that is, it's really knowing how we communicate with the people that are interviewing us, and also how we're communicating with ourselves, with our own self-talk. So stay focused on what it is that you want, how do you want to be seen, and then let the rest of it fall into place. Thank you all very much.